Hello, and welcome to today's video, where we'll be delving into one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of all time, the Rosetta Stone. This remarkable artifact has captivated scholars and the public alike for over 2 centuries, and today we'll explore why it's so important and how it revolutionized our understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization. Now I've had the privilege of seeing the Rosetta Stone in person at the British Museum, and I must say it's quite an impressive sight. Standing at just over 1 metre tall, this granadirite stele is inscribed with 3 versions of a decree issued in 196 BC during the Ptolemaic dynasty. What makes it so special is that these 3 versions are written in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotic script, and ancient Greek. This multilingual inscription proved to be the key to deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs, a writing system that had remained a mystery for nearly 2 millennia. The Rosetta Stone is a fragment of a larger stele. No additional fragments were found in later searches of the Rosetta site. The story of the Rosetta Stone's discovery is quite fascinating. It was found in July 1799 by French soldiers who were part of Napoleon Bonaparte's campaign in Egypt. The stone was uncovered while the troops were strengthening the defences of Fort Julian, near the town of Rosetta in the Nile Delta. The officer in charge, Pierre-François Bouchard, immediately recognised its potential importance and reported the find to his superiors. News of the discovery spread quickly, and soon scholars across Europe were clamouring for copies of the inscriptions. The stone itself became a subject of intense interest and rivalry between Britain and France. When the British defeated the French in Egypt in 1801, they took possession of the Rosetta Stone as part of the capitulation of Alexandria. It was then shipped to England and has been on display at the British Museum since 1802, where it remains one of the most visited objects in the museum's collection. When the British defeated the French, they took the stone to London under the terms of the capitulation of Alexandria in 1801. The early studies of the Rosetta Stone focused on the Greek text, which was readily understood by scholars of the time. This provided a starting point for understanding the content of the decree. However, the real challenge lay in deciphering the hieroglyphic and demotic scripts. It's worth noting that at this time, knowledge of ancient Egyptian writing had been lost for centuries, and hieroglyphs were thought to be purely symbolic rather than phonetic. The process of deciphering the Rosetta Stone was a long and complex one, involving some of the brightest minds of the early 19th century. It's a tale of academic rivalry, brilliant insights, and painstaking work. The first major breakthrough came from a Swedish diplomat named Johan David Åkerblad, who identified several Egyptian names in the demotic text. This was followed by the work of British polymath Thomas Young, who made significant progress in understanding both the demotic and hieroglyphic scripts. However, it was the French scholar Jean-François Champollion who ultimately cracked the code of Egyptian hieroglyphs. Champollion's breakthrough came in 1822, when he realised that hieroglyphs were not just symbolic, but also phonetic. He identified the names of Ptolemy and Cleopatra in both the hieroglyphic and Greek texts, which allowed him to start building an alphabet of hieroglyphic characters. This was a monumental achievement that opened up a whole new world of ancient Egyptian texts to modern scholarship. From this point, the stories of the Rosetta Stone and the decipherment of Egyptian hieroglyphs diverge, as Champollion drew on many other texts to develop an ancient Egyptian grammar and a hieroglyphic dictionary, which were published after his death in 1832. It's important to note that the decipherment of the Rosetta Stone wasn't just about translating a single text. It provided the key to understanding an entire civilization that had been silent for nearly 2,000 years. Suddenly, the vast corpus of ancient Egyptian writings, from monumental inscriptions to everyday papyri, could be read and understood. This opened up a wealth of information about ancient Egyptian history, culture, and daily life that had previously been inaccessible. Now let's take a closer look at what the Rosetta Stone actually says. The text is a decree passed by a congress of priests who gathered at Memphis to honour Ptolemy V Epiphanes. It was issued in 196 BC, during a turbulent period in Egyptian history. Ptolemy V had come to the throne as a child, and his reign was marked by internal revolts and external threats. The decree was essentially a piece of political propaganda designed to establish the divine cult of the young ruler and shore up support for his regime. The decree lists various benefactions that Ptolemy V had supposedly made to the temples and the people of Egypt. It mentions, for instance, that he had given silver and grain to the temples and had taken measures to protect Egypt from flooding. In return, the priests pledged to honour the king with annual celebrations of his birthday and coronation. They also decreed that copies of this text should be set up in every temple in Egypt, inscribed in the language of the gods, hieroglyphs, the language of documents, demotic, and the language of the Greeks. The decree records that Ptolemy V gave a gift of silver and grain to the temples. It also records that there was particularly high flooding of the Nile in the 8th year of his reign, and he had the excess waters dammed for the benefit of the farmers. This multilingual nature of the decree reflects the complex linguistic and cultural landscape of Ptolemaic Egypt. The use of Greek alongside Egyptian scripts shows how the Ptolemaic rulers, who were of Macedonian origin, sought to appeal to both their Greek-speaking elite and the native Egyptian population. It's a fascinating glimpse into the politics and society of this pivotal period in ancient Egyptian history. The Rosetta Stone's impact on our understanding of ancient Egypt can hardly be overstated. It quite literally unlocked a lost world, allowing us to read texts that had been silent for millennia. Its decipherment led to the birth of the scientific discipline of Egyptology, and it continues to be a symbol of breakthrough and discovery in many fields. In fact, the term Rosetta Stone has entered the English language as a metaphor for any key to understanding a complex system or idea. However, the stone's presence in the British Museum has not been without controversy. Since the early 2000s, there have been increasing calls from Egypt for the repatriation of the Rosetta Stone. These demands are part of a broader global conversation about the ownership and display of cultural artefacts, particularly those acquired during periods of colonial rule or military occupation. The British Museum, for its part, has resisted these calls, arguing that the stone is part of the shared heritage of humanity and is best preserved and studied where it is. Objects acquired in earlier times must be viewed in the light of different sensitivities and values, reflective of that earlier era. Museums serve not just the citizens of one nation, but the people of every nation. As someone who's studied this issue, I can see valid arguments on both sides. The Rosetta Stone is undeniably a crucial part of Egypt's cultural heritage, and there's a strong emotional and cultural case for its return. On the other hand, the British Museum's global reach means that millions of people from around the world can see and learn from the stone each year. It's a complex issue without easy answers, and it's likely to remain a point of debate for years to come. As we wrap up our exploration of the Rosetta Stone, it's worth reflecting on why this artifact continues to captivate us more than 2 centuries after its discovery. Part of its appeal, I think, lies in its role as a tangible link to the ancient world. When we look at the Rosetta Stone, we're not just seeing a piece of rock with some inscriptions, we're seeing the key that unlocked an entire civilization. Moreover, the story of the stone's decipherment is a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. It reminds us of the power of curiosity and the importance of cross-cultural understanding. In a world that sometimes seems increasingly divided, the Rosetta Stone stands as a symbol of our shared human heritage and our capacity to bridge linguistic and cultural divides. The Rosetta Stone is now used to refer to the essential clue to a new field of knowledge. As we look to the future, it's clear that the Rosetta Stone will continue to play a significant role in our understanding of the past. Advances in imaging technology are allowing scholars to study the stone in new ways, revealing details that were previously invisible. At the same time, the ongoing debates about its ownership and display ensure that it remains relevant to contemporary discussions about cultural heritage and museum ethics. Whatever the future holds, the Rosetta Stone will undoubtedly continue to fascinate and inspire for generations to come. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the history and significance of the Rosetta Stone. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with others who might be interested. Your support really does make a difference to the channel, and do let me know in the comments what other historical artifacts or topics you'd like me to cover in future videos. Until next time, take care and keep exploring the fascinating world of history.